Think for a minute and imagine what Orange County would be like if we didn't have the infrastructure we have in place now. A world where we didn't have the toll roads, carrying hundreds of thousands of drivers every day. Decades ago, the transportation corridor agencies embarked on turning an idea into reality. But it's not enough to have a vision or to speak of dreams. Along with each should come action that is courageous, innovative, and marked with perseverance. In one of the most ambitious and innovative transportation projects in the country, TCA set out to build 4 new highways in Orange County, one of America's most prosperous and rapidly growing areas. Early on, naysayers said it couldn't be done. But Orange County was faced with unprecedented growth and increasingly congested highways, with no sign of traditional funding sources in place. The population would increase by over 1 million people from 1981 until now. Something had to be done. So a group of Orange County elected officials and business leaders came together to take control of their own destiny and form TCA. When you remove the barriers of conventional thinking, you can accomplish great things. The story of the toll roads isn't just about building roadways. It's the history of Orange County.
Orange County is such a unique place, and our population grew like gangbusters in the 70s and 80s. Mobility became a big issue. How are we going to get them safely to where they need to go? Because if you can't move people and goods, you can't do business.
And so in 1988, the voters qualified an anti-growth, slow growth initiative on the ballot for the voters to vote to slow down the pace of development in Orange County. In the end, the ballot proposition was defeated, and it allowed then for people to step back and say, we heard you, but what do we do to resolve the transportation problem in Orange County? The Seymour Bill 1413 was a very, very important part of the building blocks that needed to be in place to build the toll roads. And a lot of that credit has to go back to that legislation that Senator Seymour carried and the governor ultimately signed.
Government couldn't fund the roads to support the development, to support housing, to support commercial businesses. That's why it was so important when the toll roads came up with a creative way to establish their own funding mechanism. Create, if you will, in my mind, the first public-private partnership in the state of California. It was relying on selling private bonds, so no risk to the taxpayers. How cool is that?
As time went by, everybody realized there weren't going to be sufficient funds to build what are effectively the toll roads right now. The county didn't have the money, the state didn't have the money, and the feds didn't have the money. So local leadership began to look at what are the alternatives, what can we do, how can we deal with this. We interacted with potential letter of credit banks for a number of years. Letter of credit banks aren't going to get on board. They are not going to do this projects for a number of different reasons. We sat back down with the banking teams and we said, can we get this done without a letter of credit? Can we do a conventional municipal bond? This plan took any liability away from the Orange County taxpayers. And these are toll road revenue bonds. They're paid for by the revenue off the road. And ultimately, the banking team got comfortable and said, we think we can sell, this much debt. The issue was it was a huge amount of debt. It was over $1 billion. So to sell $1 billion worth of municipal bonds, that's a big bond issue. Sometimes bond issues it can literally take days to sell totally out. On both the Foothill Eastern and the San Joaquin Hills corridor financings, both of them were sold out that same day. The rest is history.
It's such a big project, the toll roads. They're these long linear projects that, can extend 10 to 15 miles. And so there's a lot of differing site conditions throughout this long stretch. It's not a single plot of land like you have with a house or something. And so to be able to have the contractor and the designer working together from the get-go made these projects doable. Using design build for construction of the 73 and then the follow-on projects, the 241 and the 261, which is the Eastern Transportation Corridor, was unique in California. TCA got a special exemption to be allowed to do these as design build, and utilizing that approach for these corridors was a really big benefit for both the agency and the design build teams and actually brought them in under schedule, which ultimately resulted in the traveling public benefiting because now these roads were open, bringing traffic relief to Orange County.
Those roads were done, ready to go, complete, 1996 for San Joaquin, about 2 years later, 1998 for 241. All of those years of kind of dreams and visions we had of what these roads would do for residents and businesses, they came true.
Well, the Toll Road Agency was a true innovator because in 1993, when it launched, the electronic tolling system was innovative, it was thoughtful, and Fast Track was the first electronic tolling system in California, which made the TCA a leader in its day and continues to be a leader in the present. One of the benefits too is that the Toll Road Agency actually licenses the Fast Track name, which it continues to retain.
The toll roads really provided parallel routes to some of the areas that were experiencing the worst traffic, like the 405 and the 5. We have a parallel route, which is the 73. And then also you had horrible traffic on the 55 freeway, and now we have a parallel route with the 241 and 261. And to give drivers options really created a whole new ball game for the area. And then as time has gone on, the amount of traffic that uses our roads, it's hard to imagine if our roads weren't there, what those freeways would be like, the 55, the 405, and the 5.
As part of the environmental planning process for designing the toll road system, a number of biological surveys were conducted to try to avoid unnecessary impacts to habitat and wildlife movement. And so integral to the design of the toll road system was the inclusion of a number of wildlife undercrossings that will allow wildlife movement into the future so they can maintain the continuity of their large home range. One of the things I'm most proud about is their commitment to science-based land management and habitat restoration. That's allowed us to do best practice work in terms of restoring habitat for wildlife and making sure that we're leaving a legacy for future generations. And then we also, as people, enjoy the open space that's associated with the conservation. I know people who drive along the toll roads appreciate the beauty of the open space that's been conserved for wildlife, but it's also of great, visual benefit. The toll roads have had a real environmental commitment to making sure that they do the best work possible. It wasn't necessary to build some of the wildlife undercrossings that they did, but they did so in order to leave the environment better than when they found it.
The need for these new toll roads was very apparent, and those basically gave drivers an option. Anyone who took the option of the toll road, it relieved traffic also on those parallel routes because they weren't on there. And so it was really a game changer in Orange County. So it's really been a benefit. We would have never had it if the leaders hadn't had the foresight back in the 80s to plan and then ultimately construct these roads.
What was unique about the TCA roads was there was no operating history. These roads were an experiment. Because the toll roads are based on 40-year projections, you know that there are going to be intervening factors that are both positive and negative. So you build in refinancing strategies, and you need that flexibility in order to address any kind of events, positive or negative, that may happen over that forecast period. And that's what the TCAs did. The restructurings in 2013 and 2014 and beyond really created the margins and generated the surplus revenues, which provided insulation against things like a global pandemic and its impact, as well as any other economic impacts in the future.
This thing really improves the transportation issues in my life. It really lets me get to the places I want to get in this county, the county of Orange, in an easier way, and most important, a faster way.
Frankly, every time I drive the toll road, I think to myself, thank goodness I had the courage with my colleagues to stand by and see the development of this toll road system that today I believe is world-class And as I drive some of the beautifully environmentally sensitive areas and see how they've been preserved, how they've been maintained, give great view shed as you're driving along the toll roads, is a remarkable achievement and a compliment to the visionaries, but also to the users, to the drivers who use those facilities every day. And for it, I think are living a little better quality of life because they're not stuck on a freeway.
I don't think a project like this could have happened any place but in Orange County. Everybody is required to work together. And so business, academia, and government working together to come up with a unique, creative system that solved a fundamental problem. Mobility is critical to the ability to move people, get workers to work, to get to their jobs, to move goods, to deliver services. It is a critical, foundational, baseline must-have for solid economic development and prosperity for us all.
Thankfully, we don't have to imagine what life would be like without the toll roads, because decades ago, visionary leaders dedicated themselves to building the infrastructure needed for our region. And the agency's goal remains the same: to give drivers the choice of a reliable route that connects people to the places they need to go. The story of the Transportation Corridor Agencies is not done. Through a strong foundation of fiscal stewardship, environmental commitment, and self-reliance, the agencies continue to provide mobility solutions that maintain Orange County's great quality of life.